It promises to be a wicked weekend at the box office. Oh, sure, plenty of people will gallop into the multiplex to see Gladiator 2, and last week we talked about Bonhoeffer, which is heading into theaters as well. But Wicked, which is sort of an origin story about the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Kinda?
Not
Sorta?
as imagined by L. Frank Baum, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Wicked hopes to get plenty of people to watch it as well. And maybe their little dogs too. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Plugged In Show. I'm Paul Asay. We're going to be talking a bit about Wicked, but we'll expand that conversation to talk about musicals themselves and why there seem to be so many of them these days. And then I'd like to talk about another thing that might be music to parents' ears, at least, Plugged In's very own Parents' Guide to Technology. We'll tell you about how to get that in just a bit. But first, let's hop on the Yellow Brick Road with a couple of Wicked experts, Bob Hoos and Emily Chow. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello.
I don't know what to say when someone says welcome.
Welcome.
to me.
See, what
Welcome.
stymied me was when you said experts. Like,
Experts.
look, we know Wicked
You're more-
inside and out,
Yeah, I was going
baby.
to say, I wouldn't call myself an expert. In fact, I'm pretty sure if my sister's listening, she's going,
No.
I've seen it twice. You've seen it 0 times.
Let's
But I
just
do know
say,
the
of the
music.
3 people who are sitting at this table,
We're the experts.
You're
Okay.
definitely
Got it,
more
got it.
expert
Yep.
than me.
Yep.
So I know that you guys have been involved in theater and probably musical theater for
Yeah.
years and years and years.
Yes.
So since we're talking about Wicked, I thought it would be fun to just talk with you guys about your favorite musical productions that you have personally been involved in.
Okay.
So Emily, I'm going to begin with you.
So I think I'm obligated to say that Little Women was one of my favorites because that's where I met my husband.
I get it.
Yeah. I feel like
I didn't know Little Women had a musical version.
oh, it's amazing.
Really?
You haven't? Oh,
I haven't seen it.
Oh, Hoos, you gotta see it. It's so good. And I'm saying this to our audience as well. The music for that, you know what? I'm just gonna make this my answer. Yes, Little Women was one of my favorite productions to be on. I did not have a role. I was just part of the ensemble, but it was still a lot of fun to do. And like I said, the music, you cannot beat that music. It was so good.
That's
So
great.
yeah.
So who were you in Little Women?
I
Or were
just
you
said I was an ensemble.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But she was the most important person
The
in that
most
ensemble,
important person.
Sure.
I mean, they looked up there and said, wait, her.
There she is. There she is.
That is definitely not what happened. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun to do. And like I said, that's how I met my husband. So yeah,
Yeah.
it worked out really well for me.
It worked out really well. Mr. Hoos, what about you?
Well, I've been in a number of different musicals, and I've enjoyed them a great deal. I think I'll have to be a little self-serving, though, and say that the musical that I think I had the most fun with was a musical called All on a Christmas Day,
All in a Christmas
which you've
Day.
never heard of before because
Never.
it's my musical.
Oh, no way.
So the guy that I toured with, Jim Custer and Hoos, we created a Christmas musical, and it was published, and a lot of churches did it, and it was really fun. And the great
And now I need to seek the rights from you so that
That's
we
right.
can like
That's
perform
right,
it.
so that you can
Like,
perform it.
That's what I'm hearing.
the great thing about it was, though, as far as from my experience, because I directed it and helped produce it at my church, and so just being a part of the whole process. Starting out where you're writing something and then you see it come to flesh give flesh to it, and you see people embodying these roles that you created. It was really kind of fun. Really fun.
So let me ask you, was there any nervousness? Was there any terror that this thing just wasn't going to work once it hit the stage?
No, because we had already gone through the whole process of we worked with some very, very talented people who orchestrated it and did all the musical end of it, so that we knew the music worked, and it worked really well. And then it was just a matter of, as I said, getting people to play the roles, and we were pretty confident in the drama aspect of it. So, yeah, it was really, really fun, and I played one of the roles myself. I got in there and played one. But
Well, as the director, as the creator, you
yeah,
have
I
the
could
ability.
give myself any role I wanted. This one I shall be.
This one.
That's right. So it was really fun.
That's very cool. So I am not the thespian that you guys are. But I was in a high school production of Grease at one point in time, and that was pretty fun. I played Eugene because I was a really terrible actor, so they tried to hide me away from everything that that I could do wrong. I was.
You know, I'm just gonna say this. Often in theater, you just need a warm body. Like you just need somebody there because you don't have enough theater geeks out there.
I was definitely that warm body. But it was super fun. You know, I was a part of some musical numbers which I had never been before. I realized that even though I was a terrible actor, I was pretty funny at some of the physical stuff because Eugene, if you're not familiar with the play, is sort of this geek, right? And so at the high school dance, I was able to dance very geekily. And because of that, geekily,
you knew
yes,
all the moves.
Yeah, I did know the
You were experienced, baby.
And it was nice because even though I had basically no lines, I got a pretty nice round of applause at the end. So I was very happy about that.
You did a really good hand jive, didn't you?
I did a great hand jive. I could do it for you if you wanted to, but we got to go on with it.
I suppose we should.
Maybe we could do that as like bonus content for the video side of things. There it is. There it is. That's all I wanted.
All right. So anyway, we're talking about the musical Wicked. It is coming to theaters. This is actually going to be part 1 of Wicked. It's being split into 2 parts.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I didn't realize that either. And
Why?
Well,
okay, so I'm actually not going to argue with this. Think about every musical turned into a movie that you've ever seen. What's the biggest problem? Well, in a real musical, there's an intermission because it's so long. It's usually like a 3-hour production. Yeah. So I actually kind of appreciate this. If they can like squeeze Act 1 into, the first hour and a half movie, if that's how long it is, probably longer with how long movies are nowadays. And then they squeeze Act 2 into that, I could appreciate that. I would not argue with that because that's the thing that always bothers me about movie musicals is that they tend to cut out a lot of the content because they're trying to squeeze it all in.
Yeah, but in this case, this particular musical, there's a character transition that takes place that makes the latter part of the musical so emotional, that makes the latter part of the musical so rewarding. And if you lop it in the middle, it just feels like it. Personally, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good segue to really get into the meat of Wicked. And Hoos, I know that you have seen Wicked, so can you tell us a little bit about what goes on in this? What is Wicked about?
Well, it's generally about it. Well, it's not generally. It is about. It's about Elphaba, who is. Well, we don't know it really at the beginning.
Even though she's really green.
Yeah, she's very, very green. And that's what makes her stand out when they go to university. And everybody thinks she's sort of freakish and all that sort of thing. But we find out that she actually has some very sort of hidden witch powers. And in this particular world, because they're in Oz, there are sort of powerful things going on, but it's all kind of disappeared, and nobody really has powers anymore. But we find out that she does. But we don't find that out until a little later on in the musical. That's why I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, how do they break that off? And then we get to the other side. But anyway, she goes into university, and she is at first kind of at odds with this beautiful, sparkling blonde Galinda, who everybody loves, and she's the popular favorite, and they become roommates, much to Galinda's chagrin.
Much to their loathing.
Yeah, I mean, they both
mutual loathing.
They both really kind of dislike each other for a number of reasons, but then they become friends, and so that first part of the transition is really good. But then you find out. I'm not going to give away the meat and potatoes of it. They find out some other little secret things that are going on later on, which actually drive them together as great friends by the time we get to the end of the musical. But it's a wonderful. By the way, for those who have never heard the music, Stephen Schwartz did the music, and the music in this musical, in my opinion, is incredible.
Oh yeah.
So
Truly incredible.
Let me actually use that to pivot to you, Emily, because I know that your experience with Wicked comes through, as I think you told me, listening to the music like 1,000 times.
It's something like that, something crazy and insane. No, I think I first heard the music for Wicked when I was like a junior or senior in high school, doing musical theater, but I have yet to see it. I've yet to see it at all, just because I've never lived anywhere where it's been going, you know? So, and this makes me so sad because my sister, she's seen it twice. She saw it here in the States on one of the, traveling Broadway shows. And then she also got to see it in West End when she lived in overseas, her husband's military, so she got to see it there, and so she's super excited for the movie to come out, but I'm just like, I don't even know. I know what the plot is because I've looked it up, but I'm just kind of like, I'm very interested to see what this movie is going to be like, and for me it's going to be whether the music holds up, because that's the only thing I know of it up to this point is the music. So
and most people know the music with the original cast.
Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel.
Who is amazing.
She
Both are
is
amazing.
Truly amazing. In fact, if anything, that would be the thing where if the movie musical sort of stumbles a little, it would be that how can you live up to those originals?
Those two, those two were a
fabulous.
powerhouse.
Yeah.
And let me just say, I've heard renditions from a bunch of the other subsequent cast members, and let me just say, every Elphaba and every Glinda that has come through since then has also been like just S tier. Like, you cannot beat the vocal talent of the actresses who have played those two characters. So it'll be interesting.
Here's hoping.
I know that Ariana Grande plays Glinda, and
Cynthia Erivo, who
I
I have actually heard her sing, and she is amazing.
Oh, I've never heard
she
her
could
sing.
be really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think I've heard Cynthia Erivo, but Ariana Grande, she is Broadway trained. Like, that's how she got her start before she went over to Nickelodeon, and has subsequently gone on to her music career from there.
Well,
so she has the chops.
I heard her online sort of imitating other artists.
Yeah, I've seen that.
She's really good.
She's very good. She has a lot of vocal talent. I know that she's not to everybody's, her actual music is not to everybody's taste. It's not always to my taste, but but she does have amazing vocal talent. So
let me ask you, obviously we have not been able to see this musical yet. We got a late screening for it, so we're still waiting with all of you as to what this thing looks like. But I do think that because it's part of a stage production, a very, very well-known musical, what do you think parents should be aware of when it comes to this stuff? Obviously we've got the witchcraft element to deal with on some level, but it's probably that Wizard of Oz level, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Are there any other problems that you really need to be aware of from what you remember in the stage play?
Oh, go ahead with the stage play.
Oh, I loved the stage play. Now, maybe I didn't have my plugged-in hat firmly in place when I was watching it, but I didn't see any. I mean, as I recall, there wasn't any real language issues that I recall. There wasn't any. There's romance involved, but not really. And there's implied sexuality in the sense that there's implied sexuality with one of the relationships, but we don't ever see anything.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, and it's not a negative, but the biggest thing that the musical wrestles with is prejudice. Because obviously since Elphaba is green, everybody turns to her and says, "Oh, she's a freak. She's a this. She's a that," and they hate her just simply because of the way she looks. So that's going to be a part of the equation, and you're going to see that especially early on. But it's because it's a lesson that the show is teaching. It's saying you don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge someone just by the way they look. There's much more beneath.
Yeah.
And that's basically the major positive message of the whole show.
Yeah.
Because we think of Wizard of Oz and we think of the Wicked Witch, that nasty green, claws and a big nose, and we think all those terrible things. Exactly. And this show is saying, but wait, what if she's not really a nasty person at all?
Yeah.
She just looks that way.
I would say the only other thing I can think of that I think is a little bit in the musical, just based on what you've already said, there's the magic element.
Yeah.
But nothing outside the bounds of what you saw. If you've seen Wizard of Oz and you like Wizard of Oz, nothing outside the bounds of that in terms of magic.
Yeah.
So if you're okay with Wizard of Oz magic, then you'd probably be okay with Wicked magic.
Flying on a broom, things like that.
Yeah, I don't think I think that kind of gives families a frame of mind for what are we dealing in terms of witchcraft.
You bet. So when this episode releases, we will have the full review, so be sure to check out the full review before you go see it.
Yep.
We'll let you know about anything that you really need to be aware of. But I am interested. Wicked is probably the highest profile musical that we're seeing this year, but it's one of several.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, think of the last couple of years. There have been a number of musicals that
I
have
want to say,
come out.
didn't we see Mean Girls earlier this year?
We saw
I
Mean
saw
Girls.
it. Couldn't remember if it was this year or last year.
You saw the latest Joker movie, which had a musical element in
and
it.
that is an interesting aspect, too, right there. Well, I suppose we're going to talk about what makes a musical compelling, right? Okay. One of the things that, like I don't recommend anybody see that Joker movie.
No.
It really was pretty nasty in a number of spots. But one of the really creative elements of the film itself was how it's Joker fall adieu. You can tell I'm really French fluent. But anyway, that essentially means in English sort of a shared mental issue. Okay, that's what that means.
Oh, that's interesting.
And because we think it means part two, but no. It's about the fact that the Joker and Harley have this
Harley
shared
Quinn, who is sort of Joker's love interest.
This shared sort of insanity. But what they do is they translate all those insane moments into musical sections. And when I was watching, I thought, there's parts of this film that I hate, but the musical sides of it were kind of brilliant, especially with Lady Gaga singing. She does it. They use these musical segments to lift up all the really nasty parts. So you can have somebody literally murdering people on screen, but they make it into a musical number, and it suddenly seems
that's an interesting
it suddenly seems
wrinkle.
lifted and lighter and not so heavy.
Well, and that's part of the beauty of musicals, right? In a twisted sort of way. Obviously, the Joker takes that to an extreme, but in a way that seems like one of the attractions of musicals is the ability that they have to deal with these difficult elements of life, really, in a musical way, and the music of these movies can speak to emotion in a way that maybe sheer dialogue can't.
Well, I definitely agree with that because, so I'm going to bring up Little Women because this is actually a perfect example. So, that's a story about four sisters. I have three sisters, so there's four of us, so me and my sisters have always really related to the Little Women story.
You guys could have just done the play.
We could have, because we are all musically talented. It just would have been interesting to see who got which part. Probably be some...
Everybody wants to be Joe.
Everybody does want to be Joe. I don't... But there are some songs in that... So, obviously the movie versions that I have seen... particularly the one that came out in the 90s with Winona Ryder. That one will never fail to make me cry because I just grew up watching it with my sisters. So it's like shared memories with my sisters. The new one came close to making me cry, the one with Saoirse Ronan. But the musical version, there are 2 songs in there that if I hear the opening like notes of them, I start welling up because they are this. Like I said, the music for this musical is already so impactful, but like between the lyrics and then like music just has this way of like moving your emotions in ways where like, you know, like, yes, I have shed a couple of tears during those identical movie moments. I've shed a few tears, but when I'm watching the stage version or listening to that song, it's not just a few tears. It's like ugly crying. Like I am sobbing and like choking, you know? And so, yeah, I think that, I don't know, there's just something about musicals where like they can take really heavy emotions and it is beautiful. Like they turn it into something beautiful with the music, but it actually moves you even more than it would if it was just the spoken word.
Well, you know, Leonard Bernstein, the composer, conductor, famous, he once said, if you can touch someone with music, you touch their heart, their mind, and their spirit to the core. And that's really true. Music has that. Well, and in fact, musicals, they combine 3 key elements that touch our emotions. You've got acting. I mean, obviously, when you've got someone acting in a play or a story, they're aiming at touching our emotions, at getting us excited about whatever they're doing. So you've got that mixed with music, which is such an amazingly, like you were saying, emotional format. And then you've got dance in musicals too. And it's surprising how emotional a dance can be. I remember I saw a choir once that was singing, a big, massive choir. And over to the side, they had a young woman who was signing. She was just signing what they were singing. And I couldn't take my eyes off her because it was like this, she had made it into this little dance movement. And
it's not a dance though. That is how it is a dance.
Yeah.
It like to us, but like, yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
The way
ASL
she was
performers
moving was
are just
so
beautiful to watch.
Magnetic, and it was emotional. I mean, I was getting more emotionally tied up into what she was doing than the lyrics they were singing.
And I've seen that with dances too.
Yeah.
Like there are some dances where I don't know. I've just seen some beautiful like dancers just like you're just watching them and like you like they don't even seem human anymore sometimes. Like you're just like, and it's just, I don't know, it's beautiful to see, and it does move you in a way that, you know, you're never going to feel that way looking at a person walking down the street.
And so when you're combining all 3 elements, you get this formula that really can touch people and touch them in a very powerful way.
You bet. Last question for you. When you think about our age today, you know, it feels like a cynical age. It seems like musicals wouldn't work because, you know, and I know growing up, you would look at these musicals and you think, why are these people bursting into song, right? So you have these elements that just don't feel like they would work so much today, but you're seeing more and more of them. Why do you think that is?
Well, part of it is that escapism, I think, because people are bursting into song and they don't happen in real life. And so it helps you sort of go to a place that you don't ordinarily go to. It sort of carries you on, and that it really does, in my opinion, comes down to that exciting, a way that you can translate something mundane. And let's face it, Hollywood doesn't often come up with a lot of great ideas. It's usually, you know, repackaged, refabricated. Let's do it over again. Let's put in a new cast, do the same thing, and so it feels like we've seen that and done that. When you put it to music, boy, it does look so different.
Yeah.
It feels so different.
I think that, and this is just my own hypothesis, I think that sometimes, I read a study recently where like Gen Z and now coming up Gen Alpha, the next generation after them, like when they get online and stuff, like their lives are online. And what they don't want to deal with is they don't want to have to deal with things that make them think, that are heavy. Like they when they go online, they just want escapism. They don't really want to think about those emotions and stuff. So I don't know what it is, but for some reason, though, that exact same generation is able to sit down to a musical and allow the music to take them away. And maybe it's because it's music that they allow themselves to access those emotions and, to think a little bit deeper than they would with anything that you'll see online and maybe it's the music thing. You were saying earlier that composer says it's almost like a spiritual aspect. And I do wonder, if maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's that.
Because we're geared for that spiritual
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you guys so much. Obviously, check out our full review of Wicked online before you go see it. But I do think that this conversation about musicals in general, and there are some great musicals from the past that if you wanted to dive in, one of my favorites is Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Man of La Mancha.
White Christmas, since we're coming up on that. White Christmas is a great musical.
True. So be sure to check out the full review. And thank you so much for unpacking Wicked with us for a little bit. So now, why don't we go ahead and stay in the world of Oz and have a word for our sponsors? You.
Oh, Scarecrow, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Sure doesn't look like it, Dorothy. Look at that strange sky. And those trees. Hey, are they throwing apples at us?
My goodness, that isn't very nice at all.
Wait, look at that sign. I can't quite make it out. What does it say?
Welcome to the world of entertainment and technology. Good luck. You'll need it.
Well, that isn't very catchy, is it?
No, and it sounds scary. This world must be filled with wicked social media posts and R-rated movies. Why, over that hill, there could be fields of problematic content.
And you know who rules this land?
Who?
The Wicked Witch of the Web.
Well, that means we need to visit the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Why?
To get our very own copy of Becoming a Screen-Savvy Family, of course. It's filled with everything we need to find our way in the world of entertainment and technology.
Oh, Dorothy. We don't need to visit a wizard to get a copy.
We don't?
No. All we need to do is give Plugged In a gift of any amount. Why, even the spare change in your little picnic basket should do the trick.
Toto, too?
No, not Toto, too. Just go to the Plugged In Show homepage, check out the show notes, and they'll walk you right through what you need to do. Why, if we weren't already in Oz, we wouldn't even need to leave home.
Oh, Scarecrow, there's no place like home.
What do parents worry about the most when it comes to kids? Well, according to experts, the answer is some variation of technology. In 2023, the C.S. Mott Children's Hospital conducted a national poll on children's health. They found that the top 3 concerns that parents had all came down to some form of technology. 67% were worried about too much screen time. Almost as many were worried about social media. And then 62% wrung their hands over internet safety. That's a lot of worry. And we get it. We talk a lot about technology at Plugged In. It can be so fast, the changes that come. And one of the challenges the parents have to deal with is that their kids often know this technology better than they do. And that can be troubling. At Plugged In, we've really tried to help keep people sort of apace, at least, with the technology, try to give them a sense of comfort. Emily, you've been very instrumental in helping make that happen through so much of your work on the blog and the tech trends that we have on the parenting section and that whole bit. But we have a new tool that we have just launched that I wanted to mention. And Bret Eckelberry, you are joining us today because you kind of spearheaded that whole effort. Emily was also incredibly instrumental in putting some stuff together for it. Bret, can you tell us a little bit about this new effort that we have for parents to help them walk through technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So we put together the Plugged In team in kind of conjunction with our parenting department here at Focus on the Family, put together a PDF that's called Parental Advisory, a parent's guide to today's tech challenges. So this is a PDF resource that has all sorts of good information that parents need to know about today's tech challenges, what their kids are facing. And kind of our thought behind this is, if you remember the old G.I. Joe PSAs that said, knowing is half the battle.
Right.
That's one of the reasons we wanted to put this together, because sometimes parents just don't know what their kids are facing. Mm-hmm. So we've pulled tons of great research that has been done recently in terms of kids and even parents' tech habits. And we give some ways in that PDF too for how parents can kind of move their family toward healthier tech habits moving forward.
And that's really important, right? Because when we've talked on this show a lot about how it really starts with the parents. So they need as much help as anybody in some ways to set a good example for their kids, right?
Absolutely. In fact, some of the research, this is a little convicting, some of the research showed that kids say that their parents are on their phones too much when their kids are trying to talk to them too. So it's not just for the kids, but that they're facing so many challenges today.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really excited about this particular product, and also, by the way, the parental advisory, this was your idea, Brett. I got to give you full credit. It looks like those warning labels on the albums that you used to see. I think that was just so awesome. But one of the things that I think it does really effectively is it sort of condenses down a lot of what we've covered on Plugged In, and gives it to parents in sort of a bite-sized, easy-to-understand format. And it also has access to so many resources on the web. And one of the things that I love that it points to is tutorials. Emily, you have been the main person to do so many of these tutorials. Can you unpack a little bit about what those tutorials cover? I mean, when I say tutorials, what do I mean?
So they're basically just tutorials on how to set up the parental controls across. Right now, we've got most of the major streaming platforms, and we have worked our way through a lot of the social media platforms as well. There are more to come, and we will be updating these every now and then as well. But yeah, and hopefully, I'm also hoping to do some tutorials on how to set parental controls on devices, such as I'm thinking, like the Xbox, the PlayStation, those sorts of things, but also, phones and tablets, because that's the other thing that kids have access to. But basically, it's just step by step, hey, here's how to set up the basic parental controls, or, some things don't have parental controls, or their parental controls are lacking. So we also kind of just give you information about that, so you can sit there and say, maybe we don't subscribe to this streaming platform because I can't control what my kid sees on it, or maybe we don't use that social media platform right now until you're older, and we can have a little more, just collaboration on that. And I think that's really, I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to these tutorials. Yes, we can show you how to set up parental controls on practically anything, but at the end of the day, this is a conversation between you and your child. It's an ongoing conversation. You want to talk to your kids, like, what are you watching online? Things do slip through the cracks of parental controls sometimes. Content you wouldn't expect might show up in your streaming queue that you wouldn't want your kid watching, but because it's been rated a certain thing, it might show up there. So you want to talk to your kids, like, what are you watching? Who are you talking to on, social media? Who are you watching on social media? Who's your favorite influencer? Those are kinds of questions that you can come alongside your teenagers, especially with, and like with younger kids, it's more of like a yes, no. With teenagers, it's probably more of a let's talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Emily, I think that's great. I think that that's so important to have those conversations with your kids. And I think that the Tech Guide can help you do that, right? We have some fantastic information in there that I think makes good, interesting conversation, honestly.
Definitely. Yeah. And so for the listeners, I'll try to whet your appetite a little bit about what is in this Tech Guide. Give you a few of the statistics, not all of them, not all of the research that's been done.
We want you to get the Tech Guide.
We want you to get the Tech Guide, get the full stats, get our information on how you can build healthy habits with your family. But here are a few that really stuck out to me, I'll say. So here's one. On average per day, 8 to 12-year-olds use about 5.5 hours of screen media.
Goodness
For
gracious.
13 to 18-year-olds, that goes up to about 8.5 hours of screen media per day. So another one, and maybe some of our parents listening are feeling like this. 34% of engaged Christian parents qualify as media stressed. How the study put media stress. So maybe you're out there and you're feeling a little media stressed. So hopefully this PDF guide will help a little bit with that. Nearly 4 in 10 young people who use social media prefer the platforms over in-person communication.
That
one, yeah, that one kind of took me by surprise.
Really fascinating.
Wow.
Doesn't surprise me though.
Right.
I mean, they were raised on these screens.
That's
It
true.
makes sense that they would connect. It'd be easier to connect through a screen than it would be in person.
And there's a certain safety that comes with screens,
There
right?
is.
You just,
Yes.
you can,
Yes.
yeah, it just feels like you have a little bit of distance, and so it feels safer.
Yes. And lest you think that it is all bad, I did want to bring up a positive stat that was discovered, though. So media-engaged children, how the study kind of considers who media-engaged children are more likely than others to engage with the Bible through some sort
interesting.
of digital technology than others. So not all bad, but definitely a caution, definitely something to be aware of.
Yep.
Get the tech guide. Go to focusonthefamily.com/parental advisory, and we'll put that link in the show notes as well. Focusonthefamily.com, parental advisory, to get the PDF guide, parents guide.
That's really great. And I do think that we're going to plan on redoing some sort of good technological guide for parents every single year for a while, right? So it's a really exciting initiative. I'm super happy that it happened. So thanks so much, Brett.
Thank you.
All right, now we are going to do a segment that I really love. This was your suggestion a long time ago, Mr. Hoos. We are going to dive into dad jokes.
Yay!
And since you are the most dad person around,
I don't know
Dad
what that
times
means.
2.
dad times 2. Yes. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Okay. Well, in light of our Wizard of Oz stuff and, musicals and we just did Halloween not long ago, I'm going to do one that's sort of Halloween focused. I went to a costume party once. Yep. And I dressed up like a harp. True. Okay. I walked in and the host said, "Well, you don't look like a harp." And I said, "Are you calling me a liar?"
Oh,
Nice.
my goodness.
But
I like that one.
I
think-
think pretty awesome because you have to just take a little, like a half-second pause.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think since you're the next most dad person here,
Oh, okay. So you're throwing it to me. That seems kind of evil, but we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so we'll stay in the land of Oz here. We're gonna take this from Dorothy when she leaves the village, right? She's on the yellow brick road. She has left the Munchkins behind. She's going to Oz. She hasn't found anybody yet. And then all of a sudden, the road branches. They both look identical. They're both yellow. She doesn't know which one to take. So she goes along the left-hand side, right? She starts walking, but as soon as she takes a step, she falls. She gets back up and she slips and falls again. It's like the entire road is made of banana peels from a 1920s movie. So she just is slipping all around. She's sliding off to the side. Finally, there's a munchkin that comes down the road, and the munchkin says, "So what's going on?" And the Dorothy says, "I just can't stand up. I'm trying to get to Oz, and I don't know what to do." And the munchkin says, "Oh, you took the wrong road. This is the yellow slick road."
okay.
Okay, that didn't go exactly where I was thinking
That
it
was so funny.
I was thinking you
That
were going to
was
make a
so
political
funny.
joke or something.
All right, Emily,
Okay.
being the not dad here.
I only seem to get sick on weekdays. I have a weekend immune system.
Oh my
Oh.
goodness.
Yeah, that's definitely a dad
joke.
That's one where you're driving down the road and you look in the mirror.
Oh man. All right. Well, that was fun. fun. Thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun.
See, I like dad jokes. I think we ought to do them more often.
I do too. You especially liked mine, right?
Yes.
You loved
even
mine.
that one.
It was a bit of a big build-up for not
All
as
my-
big of a payoff as I was hoping,
All
but
my
I still
stories
liked
have
it.
a big lead up to not very much of a payoff. That's just the way I joke. So
I'm sorry. Not always. You have some good ringers here.
I
and
have
there.
some
And
good
I
ones.
think anyone at home who's got a great dad joke, they ought to send it in.
They should.
should.
They
In fact, we ought to
absolutely
read
would.
their great dad jokes on the air. What
I
do you
think
say?
that's a fabulous idea,
There you go.
Bob. I think that's a wonderful idea. And you know where you can send those jokes into? You can send them into Instagram or Facebook, or you can write to us at team@thepluggedinshow.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can even leave us a voice message. If you want to do the whole lead up, if you want to give your joke the correct enunciation, you can leave us a voicemail on the Plugged In Show homepage. You can find a little tab and it'll tell you just what to do. And you can even leave us, if you want to write us about something else, something that we talked about on the show, Wicked or whatnot, you never know. We might read that very comment on the air. I actually want to read one from one of our listeners right
Cool.
now.
Yeah.
So this comes from Sarathon Sung, and he writes about, we were talking about Transformers 1 on a recent podcast. I
Right.
believe it was episode 252. So he says, I was elated.
Just in case they want to go back and listen.
Just in case they want to listen to our profound conversation.
Yeah.
So this is what Sarathon Sung said in part. He said, I was elated to see the critical darling Transformers 1 get such a universally positive commercial reception, despite its quiet box office performance. And as I was discussing with several of my Christian friends afterwards, I found that that's also a great thing to do. Talk about these movies with your Christian friends afterwards.
Right.
I found its messages much more thought-provoking than I was expecting. The two central robots who would later become Optimus Prime and Megatron had me thinking throughout the film about the contrast between Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, both of whom largely shared a central goal, but disagreed on how it should be brought about. But I'm grateful for movies like Transformers 1, both for its artistic and aesthetic quality and for its likable message. And the subjects it addresses are all well worth considering for the faithful Christian who wants to see all people treated equally in the image of God.
Now that's a deep thinker, huh?
It was a pretty good
love,
thought.
I love to hear when we have people just talking to us about films and talking about the things they find in films, because there is so much, there can be so many rich elements in just about any film you find if you're looking for them.
If you're looking for them, yeah, but you require conversation. You need
Right.
to be able to talk with them about your friends or with us, so be sure to contact us. We would love to hear from you. Thanks, Saraf, so much appreciate your thoughts, and thanks to all of you listening. Be sure to join us next week when we talk about Moana 2 on The Plugged In Show.